we've got a fun one this week. Hi everybody, I'm Stephen Human. All I do on this channel is customize action figures, have a little bit of fun, and make some cool art. This week is no different, and we've got something fun. So I love when I'm able to use leftover pieces of figures and bodies and stuff. When I just have an idea and I'm like, hey, I can make that work. I love it. And I love when kind of luck plays a role too, when something turns out better than you expected because of just some things that you did. I think this is how this was going to turn out. So I had this body from an armored Lex Luthor, and he had the sort of funky, like half dark side head, right? I used that for Prometheus. And so I had this body. And I was just looking at heads, and I popped this Joker head on and was kind of like, oh, that's funny looking. And then I realized that with this sort of like really angry and deep frown, this head and this body would make a pretty cool Judge Dredd. So that's what we're gonna do. I really enjoy Judge Dredd. I love the satirical nature of it. I love how he's half hero, half fascist, and how they play around with that. I also love how it's been told in real time. How it started in 1977 and he was like 38, and now he's in his 80s. I think that's beautiful. So we are gonna turn this guy into Judge Dredd. I'm gonna respond to that text and we're gonna get going, so stick around. Now, before we get to the milliput, which we're gonna have to use pretty liberally on this guy, I'm gonna glue on some of these, I've got a couple of holsters from that, what is it, Thomas Wayne Batman. And so I'm going to glue these on because he's got kind of a pouch belt, that Judge Dredd. And I figured this would be a good way to make that happen, to make it look right. So I'm just going to super glue these in place before we start dealing with the milliput. And that will be a good start right off the bat. Next on this, guys, we got to fill in his chest area here. Now I used the S here that was on his chest for that Truth Superman from the New 52. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit here and get it. We got some glue in place so that it'll be glued. And at first I'm just going to get it so that it's in place, right? And then once it's in place, I'm going to pat it to get it smooth, because that's how I figured out the best way to make milliput work, right? Is to pat it to get it warm, and then it'll smooth it out. And then I will put the zipper in. Now obviously this guy's going to look a little bit more armored because obviously he's armored. But I'm okay with that for Judge Dredd because of the fact that he's Judge Dredd. So yeah, let's just get this going. Put the zipper in. Start out. So here's the problem I'm facing with this. When I was putting it on, I got a little bit of glue on my fingers. And so I have not, which then got some on here, which means I've had a hard time smoothing it out like I did with the Robin and like I've done in the past that have really worked beautifully. So I'm probably going to have to sand this guy a little bit more than I would like. I'm disappointed, but I noticed it almost immediately. I was going through and I was like, oh no, it's not smoothing out. And I could feel that the glue had gotten on there. But we got the zipper. Part of this is going to get covered up anyway because we're going to have the symbol here, and I am going to have like a chain hanging down. So hopefully it won't be too distracting, but it's just not exactly what I was wanting to go for here. But that's how it goes sometimes. This time I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I've got glue in place, and I'm just going to get it down there, get it in place, and then start moving it around so that I don't get my finger in the glue. And this, of course, is his like big pauldron he's got over here with the eagle on it. This one is going to be the other one. And we're going to put him in place and then just start molding. And what I'm going to do with his head, I haven't gotten the thing yet, but I'm going to try and use like those little plastic things that you get from like a vending machine, but one of those, I don't even know what they're called. You put the quarter in, you know what I'm talking about. I think that cutting out a little piece, that'll give me the see-through area. We'll see. But let's get these going first so that Judge Dredd can start really taking shape. Now these are working way better than this did. Because you can see I didn't get any glue on my fingers. And the best way to do it is just you pinch around, you start smoothing it out, and you can already see that as the more I touch it and the more I press it, the smoother it gets naturally. And that's what I want, is I want that natural smoothness so that it forms in the way that I want, and that at the end of the day I don't end up having to sand it, because when I sand it, it doesn't necessarily become smooth. So when I figured out that you could do this with the Milliput, it really was a game changer for making things look real and stuff. So I'm just going to keep doing that, getting it so that they start to really take shape. You can see I kind of remolded some of this to make it look a little bit more like armor, like how it was in the Dredd movie. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and I'm going to start molding here on the shoulder, on the pauldron, and see if I can get it looking like how it does, where it's got some lines coming across here. And it looks pretty cool. So this is going to take a little bit of molding, a little bit of time. But with some patience, I think I can get it right and have the proper look so that he starts to look like the #1 judge in Mega City 1. And then I'll do the same thing over here with the bird, where I'll start molding in the feathers and stuff for the eagle here on his shoulder. So that's my next step to get that moving. Now Judge Dredd has a chain that goes over to his emblem over here. And what I'm going to do, I got one of these from my daughter's. It's just a little piece of old jewelry. And I'm going to glue it in place over here on the pauldron. I'm going to cover it in the thing so that it hangs across his chest. And then when I do the emblem here in a minute, but I realized I wanted to do this, so I figured I would do it now. And then because I mean, he's going to get spray painted all together anyway. So this way, everything will be in place. And so yeah, I'm going to put a little bit more Milliput in here. Been cutting. I've just been experimenting with the stuff here. But I'm going to add a little bit of Milliput, I think. Put these cuts back in and then add a few strips. Go from there. All right, not bad. We got the symbol in place. We got the chain. We got the eagle-looking thing. He's looking pretty good with the Milliput. Now let's go ahead and add the knee pads, because he needs those as well. Well, I am not unhappy with this guy so far. Next stage is we'll work on the helmet, and then we'll spray paint him all black and start on the details. But I'm liking this. So I got them all spray painted and put back together, and now what we're going to do before we put the head on is we're going to add a layer of flesh tone to him. And I'm just going to go over nice and light on this first one because I use this flesh tone craft paint and it goes on really thick and I don't want that. So just like if I was basically doing a like a metallic on him, I'm going to move the paint around a lot. And I'm just going to go up to the eyes because beyond that he's not going to be seen. But this way we can get down here in his chin and really make him look like our good friend Joseph Dredd. And then we'll start working on the helmet. All right, he's not looking half bad. Let's start working on his helmet. So what I've got for the helmet is just one of these little container thingies that you get from the, a vending machine. We put the quarter machines, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it and we're going to make the visor for his helmet so that we're able to then glue it in place and start to create the helmet around it. All right, it turned out that gluing these in place was exceedingly difficult. I tried everything and it wouldn't stick. So I cut up this little cape that I had just in my extras that was, I don't even know who it's for, it's tiny. And I put that in place as the visor. Obviously it's not going to be see-through, but it was going to be black anyway. I just wanted to have a little bit see-through at the bottom, but I could not get it to work. So this is our compromise. And now we will milliput and we'll start putting the helmet on. Now we're going to start doing the helmet. I'm going to try and make this as thin as possible as we go around first, so that we can get it looking right. It's going to take a little bit of milliput, and I'm just going to lay it on the sides. Got a picture of Judge Dredd here on my computer so I can make it look right. And we'll just go from there. And remember, what I'll do is when I'm getting into it, I'll pat down, make it so that it's smooth. That's been easily the best way that I've found to do it, to make this milliput work really well. And hopefully at the end we will have a really nice Judge Dredd. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tools. Sometimes I'm going to use the X-Acto knife, sometimes I'm going to use one of these, and I'm just going to try and sculpt it so that the helmet looks as good as I want, as best I can, and that it's going to be solid. Because sometimes with the milliput, if I make things too thin, then they might break. So I'm just going to keep molding. It's going to take a little bit of time, but try and enjoy this part as best you can, because this is where your artistry comes in. This is where you start to make it your own. And with this particular character, there's different versions of Dredd's helmet, and you can create the one that you like the best. So don't be afraid to play around. And like I said, it's going to take a little bit of time. Don't judge yourself too harshly until you've got it in the end stage. And then feel free to judge yourself as harshly as you want. And as we're going through and molding, we need to make sure to get his little symbol on his head and the ridge back here. And I think we'll be in pretty good shape. Once this is black and we start adding everything to it, I think it's going to really pop and just look amazing. He's looking good. Let's get the black paint on, make everything match so we can start in on the colors. Now that he's all painted black, we're going to do a nice light coating of silver on all of this metallic stuff. This is just a standard craft silver that I use a lot. It's a darker silver, and this will be the base for the gold, because we want there to be a nice metallic underneath. And so everything that's going to be gold, we're going to first do in this silver. And we'll go over the chain, because the chain actually is silver. So we'll do that too here in a second. But so we're going to go over all this stuff that's going to be gold. And we're going to add this silver to it before we do that. And we're going to allow it to just be a nice light coating so that the black will stand through, will come through, and make it look just very realistic. Now, you wouldn't have Judge Dredd without the Lawgiver. So this is actually a gun that I got off of you remember the diorama that my brother and I did with the Dark Knight Returns Batman? This is a gun that he came with that I've never used. We're gonna cut down some of the handles so that it'll fit in his hand, but we're gonna add some metallics to it. Maybe drill a hole here in the tip to give it an actual barrel. We'll see. But while I got the silver paint out, I might as well do some of this to make it look a little bit more realistic and not quite so cartoony. Now we come to it, the gold. Oh, look at that. Well, I used to, with some of the other figures, if you'll remember, I would do yellow here first in order to give it a good base, and it never looked right. It always ended up just looking really toy, like it was a toy, which is not what I want. I want this to look like it's metal and that it's, an armor. And this is the way to do it, for sure. not by going with the yellow, but by going up with the black and then the silver and then the gold. That's how we make it look right. Took me a little while to figure it out, but eventually I get stuff. Eventually I start to figure it out. So we're just going to move through here, get this metallic, add some highlights, and then move on to the green. Yeah. And once we have that base gold on and he's looking good, I'm going to go over these ridges with just a little thicker coat, just on the edges, because remember, those would be the areas where they would be touched and rubbed, and so they would be shinier. And it will just help to add a nice little layer of goodness to make it look that much cooler, that much more real. Now before we move on to the green, which is obviously a major part of this character, I want to get the first layer of red here. I'm using the magnifying glass so that I can get close and hit all these edges. I want to do this first because I'm thinking of doing a metallic, but at the same time after I get this on, I'm not sure how it's going to look and whether I'll need one. I don't know. But I'm thinking I'll do a metallic layer and then I'll do my my airbrush red that I use. That goes on super light and ends up really highlighting the metallic red. So I'm going to go through on this, get this done, and then we'll go on to the green, because the green's really the last major part for coverage sake anyway. Oh, this guy's looking good. And now we move on to the green, which is pretty simple. We've just got this, I think this is called orc green or something like that. It's just a Vallejo green. It's a little bit more muted. I like it. And we're just going to go through these areas and green them up. And that's about it. Nothing too complicated. All right, almost immediately after starting that, I decided to change it up. So I've got a darker green, and I'm going to do the darker green first and get that fully covered. And then I'm going to go through with a dry brush on this lighter green. So I will repaint over the top once that's dry with the lighter green, because I want it to have the texture. So I'm going to go first with this dark green on all this stuff, and then the lighter green as a dry brush over the top. That will look much better, I think. And his belt is all green. He's got a lot of green on him when it comes to these accents. So that's all I'm going to do is green this stuff up with the dark green, and then we'll go through with a dry brush. And then we'll go back to the red and see what we can do. While that green is drying, I'm just going to go through with a little bit of gunmetal gray on some of these edges and just add a little bit of character in here. He wears armor in the comics and in the movies and stuff. Usually it's like a leather armor. This will look obviously slightly more armored, but I'm okay with that. I think it matches his character. And so that being the case, a little bit of gunmetal gray is going to go a long way to just making him look cooler. So that's all I'm doing. Nice and simple. Dusting it around. And I'm going to take some of the gunmetal gray on his gun here as well. I put a layer of black on it just to make it so that it was a little bit more, just add a little bit more. And just some gunmetal gray to match everything up. And as you can see, I drilled the holes. Now this dark green is done. We're just going to do a light dry brush with this green. And this is a thicker paint. This green is thicker. And so I've got to just kind of go over the top of it. Keep moving. And that's all we need to do. So you can see the darker green stands out underneath. And this just catches the edges. That's what we're after. I'm going through with just a little bit of wash here on the face just to add a little bit of texture to some of the lines after doing the flesh tone. And just a little bit, just enough to make things stand out, make the lips stand out, make some of the lines stand out. That's it. Now we're just going to take a light layer of the metallic red and go over the top of the helmet here. We're almost done. As you can see, he's looking really good. But I think I'm going to do this with the metallic, fill in some of the red here, and then go over with the model air so that we can really make all of this just look very unique. So with this metallic paint, just a really light coating, just enough to make it look metallic, and then we'll go over with the other red. Final touch is just with the model air, that really liquidy red that makes the metallic pop so much. Just going to go over the whole thing, and then we'll clear coat this guy. It's looking really great, just like I envisioned. All right, Judge Dredd. I have a figure of him that I got a bunch of years ago. It's fine, but it's wonderful to have a 7-inch and have him look so cool. I'm really happy with how he turned out. There's a number of different bodies you could probably use to get this guy to work. I like this one that's got a little bit more of an armored look, like he's about to go into a big battle there in Mega City 1. So this is my version of Judge Dredd, but feel free to do your own. Find other figures that it might, that it might work. Mold some other parts. Make your definitive Judge Dredd. Thank you for watching. I'm Stephen Human. Check out stephenhuman.com for all of my sci-fi thriller novels, because I am a novelist. And subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends. Join me every week as we create, we have fun, we learn. I'm Stephen Human, and I'll see you next time.